So we have finally made it to Death Battle Season 8 Death Rankings. And honestly, I had been dreading this one, and you'll find out why soon enough. But first, as usual, I'll be going over the rules. First off, I'm only ranking confirmed deaths, so no crazy endings where both combatants lived, or any draws unless it resulted in a double knockout. Secondly, all deaths are fair game. Even bystanders in the fight, if they died, they may be ranked here. And lastly, this is a Death Battle death ranking, and so does not reflect my views on the results. And so with that out of the way, let's get into the Season 8 Death Battle deaths, brutal to most brutal. Like I had said, I was dreading having to do this season, and this battle is the reason why. There were many deaths that took place in this fight, but the one we're talking about in this placement is Reverse Flash. This Reverse Flash, the one who gets completely incinerated when Goku Black goes back in time and shoots him with a beam. Quick, no real pain, and it's done. Coming in at number 23 is the battle in which King Mickey charges full speed into Yoda's force using the light. And much like Reverse Flash, this death also ends in a quick disintegration. Of course, you couldn't have it end without Yoda coming back as a Force Ghost and getting bonked on the head before disappearing. How frickin' brutal. Might as well get used to seeing this battle because we're going to visit it a few times. And for this placement we have Reverse Flash. A different Reverse Flash, but this one gets sliced in half by a scythe. That was about it. Don't even know why I transitioned for this one, because we also have another Reverse Flash who also gets sliced in half with a scythe. And again, an extremely quick death. And coming back to this battle again, this time we have one of the Goku Black's death. Again, we have another quick one, but pretty brutal, having to have a fist go through your chest. But he dies pretty quickly. Okay, so now taking a break from that fight, we have the Iron Fist vs. Po battle. A unique one in which Po uses the same "I'll take you there myself" move that he used in the third movie. As the fight continues in the spirit realm, Po visualizes Daniel's head as a dumpling, eventually using his chi to overpower and turn him into dust. And of course we weren't going to stay away from this one for too long. And we have here another one of the Goku Blacks. And much like the last Goku Black, this one was also punched in the back. But what makes this worse is the fact that he was torn apart as a result. By this point, this really should just be a Goku Black versus Reverse Flash deaths, brutal to most brutal. This one really could be considered a quick death. However, when a self-righteous god comes along and starts incinerating everyone with horrified screams, this becomes a little more than a simple one and done, especially for those who are watching just before they get vaporized. Now, in a way, this one does involve multiple deaths in one ranking. The battle between Steven Universe and Star Butterfly basically turned into an all-out war. And of course they had to give us the "this person might lose until they regain confidence" scenario. And so of course Star summons every bit of energy that she can, and ends up not only incinerating Steven, but everything else on the beach. Literally including her own people. Well, this seems like a rather familiar battle, and this ranking is for the Goku Black who was vibrated right down to the atoms. Now, I've never been turned to atoms, so I don't know how painful it actually is, but it seems like the vibrating that happened just before really shook up his insides and probably didn't feel too pleasant. Now, this next matchup is one you should recognize from long ago, just with a different outcome. When at first it seemed like this was going to be death by crushing rocks, Mipha's Grace and the Fierce Deity's Mask started up a whole new round that I really wish lasted a little bit longer. But after some sword clashes, Cloud uses the Omni Slash, then slices straight through Oni Link, and he splits apart a few seconds later. with a blood-curdling scream. Surprised this isn't the Goku Black vs. Reverse Flash again? Yeah, me too. And I do have to admit, this was a fun one to watch with the Spider-Man swinging around town. Even with one arm cut off and now being able to match with Yang, Blake was still able to catch Mikasa's Thunder Spear and throw it right back at her. With it lodged in her chest and being detonated, Mikasa went out with a bang and a scream of agony. There always has to be that one "yes, this exists" type of episode, and this is that one. I do have to admit this was at least the end of the Boomstick's lost father jokes. This one was also quite unique in the fact that Wiz and Boomstick were still analyzing the characters mid-fight. We also had what seemed like a defeat after drinking all of the Kool-Aid and escaping, and declaring himself the winner. Randy Savage took his own little souvenir from the fight. With one last "oh yeah," a burst of Kool-Aid exploded through Randy's chest. This could have been a little higher, but then again, Kool-Aid Man also brought Randy back to life, and apparently they do this every weekend. And now we sit just outside the top 10 with Ryuko's death. This is also the first one on the list to actually have multiple parts to it, with the first part being Ryuko being punched from space and slammed onto the ground. You know, after re-entering the atmosphere. Shadow then ends it with a chaos blast completely incinerating her. And by her screams, it wasn't a quick, but it wasn't a drawn-out incineration either. And entering the top 10, we have the classic matchup of billionaires with fun toys. Had this ended in just a hand-to-hand fist fight, Batman would have won. However, he was against the very tricky Tony Stark. Batman appeared to have the upper hand, but Tony, of course, had prepared for this outcome. It's bad enough being blown up, it's even worse when being encased in a metal suit and unable to do anything about it. And that's the kind of thing that puts this death into the top 10. So this was another quick death, but it was gruesome enough it had to at least make number 9. Because using lightning, Storm literally blew Korra's brains out and fried her head, before leaving the body to be lost underwater. So what can I say about this one, except it exists? Although it actually was a very entertaining battle, and while we weren't fooled by the beginning supposed death of Popeye, it still was a great start to a good fight. Eventually evolving into an all-out galactic battle, going 3D, Saitama had finally found the challenge he was looking for. As far as the death goes, we end up with a clash of punches that resulted in Saitama being cracked open. Now, I didn't exactly know how to call this, considering he actually turned into an egg rather than actually dying, but I guess that's a fate worse than death. Now we start getting into the ones that got a little harder to place. Now, as far as our number 7 death goes, I feel Madara and Aizen had way too much fun. Also, we had quite a few fake-out deaths with this one, including when Aizen sliced Madara into pieces, or at least thought he did. And then we had what looked like Aizen incinerating Madara, after Madara had thought he had already won. Which, as it turns out, was another genjutsu of Madara's, ending this fight with truth-seeking orbs before finishing off his head. Supposedly. We now finally sit just outside the top 5, and things really get brutal here, starting the events of Alucard's death when Dio crushes his heart, after which he lets the world take over in a very brutal beating, ending the entire fight with a literal rain of blood. And you probably thought we were done with this one, but break's over and we're back to this fight. Now, it's bad enough being an innocent bystander being killed in a fight. It's even worse when you're minding your own business and being dragged into it. What makes this death worse is I don't even think Reverse Flash really needed a shield if he's fast enough to just dodge all of Goku Black's attacks. Oh, another fight involving a billionaire, and just before our top 3. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen a death involving a body switch. However, Dr. Doom pulls a Ginyu before switching back to his own body, after which Lex is pinned to his own building before being ripped apart and literally taking an L. And welcome to the top 3. I'm sure you remember Vader's death against Dr. Doom. Well, he had it easy compared to Geese Howard, and he actually also tried to escape the volcano while pulling his opponent down with him. Not only did this not work, he also basically contributed to his own demise. After being knocked back down and impaled, the lava settled back around him, leaving him in a very agonizing death. Now you know that death's going to be brutal when it involves these two, especially if it's Shao Kahn who's delivering the final blow. And while under usual circumstances a fist through the chest is usually a fatal blow, these are no ordinary fighters. And while Akuma made his attempts at victory, Shao Kahn quickly put a stop to that. After catching Akuma's punch, Shao Kahn had called to his hammer to do more than just simply break his arm. And if having his arm ripped off wasn't bad enough, he had the spiked end of the hammer to the face, ending it in a way that only Shao Kahn can. These Street Fighter guys really need to stop fighting him. And finally, the last time we have to visit Goku Black vs. Reverse Flash, with the number 1 most brutal being Goku Black's final death. Reverse Flash managed to get a hold of Goku Black's time ring just before vibrating his arm through his chest. And this is where the overkill comes in. I'm sure having your face scraped across the ground doesn't feel very good, but going around and around and around the earth with a horrifying scream? That was already enough to place it here. But if Goku Black wasn't dead after that, he definitely was after being thrown into the sun. And so ends another brutal to most brutal ranking. But what do you think? Which one do you think was the worst death of Season 8? Let me know in the comments below. Also be sure to like and subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified. And until next time, keep gaming.